Clear prop.
Star 73, Yankee number 2, following twin traffic, 3 mile final, clear Pleasantville. 1 Charlie Bravo, exit in runway 25, going 4 mile final.
This is Behind the Prop with United Flight Systems owner and licensed pilot Bobby Doss and his co-host, Major Airline Captain and designated pilot examiner Wally Mulhern. Now let's go Behind the Prop.
What's up, Wally?
Hey, Bobby, how are you?
I am fantastic, as always. This is a big day. I'm excited. I'm super excited. I never thought, I don't know what I thought early on, Wally, but this is the 100th episode of Behind the Prop. What are you thinking about this?
I was thinking about that earlier today, and I'm like you. When we started this, I had no, I didn't know what to think. I didn't know, would we do this for 3 weeks? Would it last a month? Would it last 15 years? I don't know.
Who knows? We'll keep trying. I think I told you early on, I did another podcast years ago about my other career, but the average podcast doesn't get past a 6th episode. And I felt like if we could get past 6, we would be heroes in the podcasting world. The reality is we put 4, I think, in the can before we ever launched the show, which means we had 4 published, ready to go. Gave us a little bit of lead time. We've not always had 4 shows in the can, and some weeks we've struggled to get something recorded last minute and get it edited, and it's been a lot of fun. No matter what it's been like behind the scenes, we've had a lot of fun doing it. The feedback from the listeners has been a lot of interesting things to both of us and to the aviation community. And today we have asked the voice of Behind the Prop, Nick Allen himself, to step in and kind of turn the tables a little bit today and interview both of us. So, Nick, welcome to the show.
What's going on, guys? And first of all, I just wanted to say I'm a huge fan of the show. I get to listen to the show before everybody else every week. I've done that for almost 100 episodes, and I thoroughly enjoy it, and I'm a fan, so...
Yeah, you are one person I can say has probably listened to every show other than me and Wally. I think there's a lot of listeners out there that have as well. And I do always wonder what you think when you're editing it. But we appreciate the partnership that you've had with us. And I think your aviation career has grown over the last 100 episodes, not just because of the show. But thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to interview both of us and kind of give the listeners a different perspective on both Wally and I as you take us through the 100th episode.
Of course, guys. Yeah, I think I was a private student when you guys started the show, and now I'm going on 250 hours, instrument rated, and as you guys know, I'm a controller as well over at Houston Center. So, yes, like most people, I'm slowly chipping away at those hours. So I put together a couple of questions here for you guys as aviators, and then a couple just about the show. And I guess if you don't mind, Bobby, we'll start with you, if you're good with that.
Fire away.
All right, Bobby, what made you want to own a flight school in the first place? How did you even get here?
Man, that's a question I get asked often, and I still don't know that I have a good answer. I don't think I wanted to own a flight school. My career started a long time ago as a police officer here in Houston, and we put some laptops in the patrol cars, and I got fascinated with technology, and I kind of became a technologist. First a consultant, then a sales rep, and had a good career there. And always wanted to fly, never really had the chance for family reasons, kids, wife, whatever was in the way. And one day my wife said, hey, if you want to fly, go fly. So I went and flew. A neighbor friend of mine who's still a regular renter at United Flight Systems, I knew he had built a plane in his garage. So I went and talked to him when she gave me the pass, and he said, you got to go see Bob Watts at United Flight Systems. And that's what I did. And the rest is a little bit of history, but I kind of went through the progression like most flight students do. I went through my private, thought that that's all I really wanted or needed. Realized quickly that you're not a good pilot if you're not an instrument-rated pilot. So I worked on my instrument rating, and a friend of mine and I decided we were going to buy a plane, and we didn't know what that really meant either, other than really expensive. But we thought we'd lease it back to the flight school. So we went and talked to Mr. Watts about the process. And in that conversation, I had a small strategy to ask him what he wanted for the flight school. And he he was receptive. I think he was ready to retire and move on, and he saw two younger guys that wanted to put some money in the flight school and make it great again, and I think we did that. Since then, I've bought my partner out, and I'm a sole proprietor today at the flight school. I love it. I spend more hours up there than my wife wants me to, I think, most of the time. She reminds me almost weekly, if not daily, that she said I could fly, not buy a flight school. But I love being around aviation. I love being around the people in aviation. I try to explain to people coming from corporate America and high stress, there's nothing better than going to a place where almost everyone is thrilled to death to be there. And not too many people walk into a flight school going, oh my God, I have to fly today. They're almost all excited about what's there in front of them. The only time they're not is if it's a bad weather day, and we've all experienced that in aviation. But I don't think I knew I wanted to, but I will say back in my corporate days, I had a lot of great mentors, and they used to always try and get me to compartmentalize what I wanted to do. And what I wanted to do was manage a team that had a goal based on some sales numbers and some projections and make it the best I could make it. And when I step back, that's what I do every day. I'm trying to build with partners like you and Wally and others, the best flight school in Texas, and kind of have dreams to make the best flight school in the world for students, where they learn and they have the chance to learn better than anywhere else. And that drives me every day to get out of bed and try and do that.
That's so well said, because every day I come up to your flight school, it's not like I'm going to get my taxes done or, I have to go pay some bill. It's the best day of the week. It's the best time of the week. I get to come in there and hang out by all the airplanes, and obviously just the professional environment you've set up there. And anyway, I think you've accomplished a lot there, Bobby, and we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Can I just tag on to that? I mean, when I'm doing check rides with applicants, I take a little bit of time to get to know them, and I'll ask them, why are you here? What are your aviation plans? Just tell me something about you. And I tell them a little bit about me, and I a lot of times I will thank them for letting me be a part of this special day in their life. And I tell them, I said, I get to fly. There are days that you wake up and you say, oh, I have to get a haircut today. I have to go to the bank. I have to do this. But going to the airport, I've never said I have to go to the airport today. I say I get to go to the airport today.
Unless I'm talking to my wife trying to get an excuse to get out of the house, then I have to go to the airport. But
yeah.
Otherwise I get to go to the airport.
Yeah.
Well, Wally, that kind of segues into my next question for you really nicely. You've been flying for a long time. Obviously, you started out private pilot, worked your way up, flight instructor and airline captain. What is the proudest moment, if you can pick one, of your entire aviation career?
Without a doubt, my daughter's accomplishments in aviation. Both my daughters have taken to the family business, and both have gotten up to the flight instructor ranks. So just seeing them solo, or get their private, their instrument, commercial, all that, that is by far the greatest thing for me. Second to that, I would say, and a very far second, is one of my very first captain trips at Continental Airlines many years ago on the 727. I got to have both my parents on board, and I flew to Phoenix and back. And so both my parents, and they both came from an airline background, Eastern Airlines, way, way back. And just knowing they were in the back of the airplane was very rewarding for me. But by far, my daughters.
And that's, as you know, for me, so cool to hear, because I fly my two young daughters around all the time right now in the Cessnas and now the Grumman that we just bought. So I can't even imagine that feeling. That's got to be really, really cool.
Yeah.
All right, Bobby, one back for you. We'll kind of shift toward the podcast. Like you said, I don't know the exact number, but the best stats are made up. So something like 98% of podcasts don't even make it 6 episodes or whatever the stat is. So I guess what surprised you most about launching a successful podcast? What has surprised you most about the process?
I don't know if I would call the previous podcast successful, but it's had more listens than this one. So I guess it's successful. It's kind of retired, but keeps growing, oddly enough, on a daily basis. And a quick plug there. It's called the Tech Sales Show, and it's listened to more overseas now than it is in the United States. But I guess I kind of had a little bit of insight on what it would take, and I think if Wally could remember, I warned him, it is going to be a grind. No matter how much we love it, once we start doing it, we're going to create expectations for ourselves. Our listeners will have expectations. And the day we let any number of listeners down is the day that we start losing listenership. And of course, we both wanted it to grow. We both had kind of some edicts that we really didn't necessarily want to have advertisers. We didn't want to try and do anything that was going to complicate just giving back to aviation. So we started early on with those few cans and those few shows in the can. And, you know, the days that when we don't have a show recorded and bad weather's come and Wally's got check rides and I've got work to do, and Thursday becomes Friday and Friday becomes Saturday and we have no show recorded, we've put some stress on ourselves to make it happen. I think we've missed one day in, you know, almost 2 full years now, which is, if anyone could put themselves just in that work mindset of, okay, I'm going to do something an hour a week for free and I'm never going to complain about it and I'm always going to do it, most of us would fail at that. So it really takes 2 guys, Wally being the senior guy in the flight times category here, to step up and make time for it every week. There's obviously many things that Wally could be doing instead of doing a podcast. And likewise, I have a family and other things going on too, but we love the feedback. We love that people walk in and say, I tune in Monday mornings at 7 a.m. every Monday. It's what I look forward to. And I don't want to let any of those people down. So I think the thing that I knew, but I'm still shocked by, even now we're recording late at night. The 3 of us are in 3 different places. We're doing this because we want to make sure we hit 100th episode on Monday morning, and that takes effort, that takes time, and I'm not complaining. I love it, but I knew that the draw to do other things was going to be there, and we never get sucked away and do other things. I think we missed Father's Day, and I think everybody listening can understand that was a good week to miss.
And we reran my favorite episode that week, which was the Tammy Jo, the famous Southwest captain and naval aviator. We ran her show, so I think that ended up being a good one anyway. But again, kind of a good transition there. Wally, who's been your favorite guest on the show? You guys have had a bunch.
I'm going to give it a tie, and it is the pilot who flies the slowest thing that we have talked about and the fastest thing. The two guests were Kevin Ford, who's an astronaut, who I flew with at my airline. He's an airline pilot with me, one of my coworkers. And we're just flying a trip down to Chile one day, and then I found out he was an astronaut. And it was a lot of fun after that, because I told him, I says, okay, you're just going to tell me stories the whole time we're flying. And he did. So Kevin Ford, and then Michael Doherty, who is the chief pilot of Goodyear Airship Operations, the head blimp guy. I grew up in an era where you'd watch a lot of outdoor sporting events, and they always showed the Goodyear blimp, and that was just always a really cool thing. Then when I moved to Houston in 1987, we happened to get an apartment about 2 miles from where one of the Goodyear blimps was based. So almost daily, I would see that thing flying around Houston. And I used to go over to the blimp base and hang out and stand by the fence, and they were supposed to ask me to go for a ride, but they never did. So, the blimp guy and the space shuttle guy were I would say my 2 favorites.
That's awesome. Bobby, we've seen the show grow in all kinds of countries. We have all kinds of cool stats and stuff, numbers that we can look at online. What's been the most shocking portion of the world that you've seen the show growing in and kind of been like, what?
Well, the fact that you even use the word world is humbling to me, right? I think early on we were trying to get out of Houston. There was 2 guys who had an idea that we put on tape and digital, and we played it. I can remember when I was looking for somebody outside of the greater Houston area to listen. I mean, we spent some money to try and grow the listenership, but in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't much money. And we left Texas, and I was shocked that we were leaving states. And then we kind of went west, and then we went east, and I was like, oh man. And then it was really the first 10 days or so, somebody in Canada listened, and then somebody in South America listened, and Wally was the first one to bring up, do you realize we've been listened to in 6 continents this week? And I was flabbergasted that, I mean, aviation's a big community, but this wasn't a cooking show that everyone in the world could relate to, right? There's this 1%er of pilots in the world. And I was just thinking it was a small demographic, but it's actually been huge. So as we went and we got into Europe, and if people could imagine, and if they go look at our Facebook page and stuff, they can see some maps that I'm sure I've published, that the statistics show kind of in yellow bubbles of where we're being listened to in the last 7 days or lifetime. And those yellow bubbles kind of just grow. And most recently, we've had hundreds and hundreds of people listening weekly in Perth, Australia. And I'm like, there's no way that a simple flight school owner in Spring, Texas could have reached hundreds of aviators in Perth, Australia. Australia is kind of this one place I want to go. I'm not sure I really want to ride with Wally all the way over there one day, but I have this vision that Australia's got to be cool, and it's all the way underneath where I'm at right now. I'm just shocked every day that people in Perth are, and when I say hundreds, I put that into hours all the time. So let's just say there's 180 people listening to us in Perth this week, right? That's like tons of days of people listening to us talk, right? And it's just shocking that hopefully we're saving lives. Hopefully we're helping people be better pilots. But it's crazy that people would commit that much time and effort to listening to some of the stuff that we put down. And Australia is the big shocker for me because it's so far away, and we haven't spent any money trying to advertise over there. It's just been good aviators telling of other aviators and making it be something that sticks over there for sure.
And that's the thing I've enjoyed over the last 100 episodes is, I can't fly every day. I can't go out to the airplane every day. I can't come to the flight school every day, but I can keep my mind on aviation every day or multiple days a week by listening to the podcast. It's kind of become part of my currency.
I gotta say that's the one thing that drives me. I don't need a pat on the back, and I have a big enough ego, so people don't need to inflate that at all. But when people tell me that they listened to me as they drove into the flight school, it's humbling that I could have anything to share. I've only been a pilot for 7.5 years. Obviously, I'm inundated and wrapped around the aviation bubble all day, every day, and mostly around the training environment. So I do have something to share, of course, but man, it is humbling to hear that I listened to the last 6 episodes. This episode was the best episode ever. There's a lot that we have to be thankful for, but I am most thankful for the happiness that some of the aviators have shared with me about listening to the show. And more importantly, my chief pilot, who's got, 30 years of aviation time, he tells me he learned something from the show, and probably from Wally, not Bobby. I get it, but he learned something from the show. And it's humbling to have a guy who's got 30 years of aviation, tens of thousands of turbine hours, tens of thousands of GA hours, that I was able to give him a way of thinking of something differently. So keep the good press coming. It is very much appreciated for sure.
So as we'll move into in a bit here, the future of the show and some changes, some big fun things that are coming up. But first, a couple of personal questions for you guys, just back into your aviation background and stuff. Bobby, kind of along those lines, as a flight school owner, what is one thing that student pilots do that drive a flight school owner absolutely crazy? If you can narrow it down.
I'm going to have like 4 or 5 of these, but I
Okay,
promise to be somewhat brief. When we're private pilots, we'll, and you keep me in check here, but when we're private pilots, we learn about these external pressures and these egotistical mindsets and things that might prevent a little bit more risk for us than we should. And I think that's the thing that I see every day that just makes my heart break for some of these young men and women. They feel so driven to get a cross country done, and they want to go when it's just so borderline that it's just not necessary that day to go. Their experience level is so small. We talked about it a few episodes back on solo expectations, and it just pains me to see how much they want to press the envelope when that's the one thing we're trying to teach out of them. But the external pressures of, I got to go to college, I got to meet this hour deadline, or my mom and dad are going to be mad at me. That's just so painful for me to watch. But it's the one thing that drives me insane is the constant requests of, can we break this rule just for me today? I promise it's only once, but it really isn't just going to be once. And to not go into all 5 of my ideas or things, I would say starting planes is the absolute most terrible thing that I listen to and hear all day and see all day. I don't know how we can do any better. We work really hard at teaching people how to start planes, but I don't think the concept of a hot start versus a cold start, and we've done shows on this too, so please go back and listen. But I see way too many flooded aircraft. I see way too many hot starts that don't get started because they've flooded the aircraft. I've seen cold starts not get started because they didn't prime it, and it's just crank on my starters, and they're expensive. They're $300-400 a pop, and we probably burn them up out of just not knowing how to start planes, not following checklists, not following the POH. Yesterday there was a great example where someone tried to start an aircraft, it just wouldn't start, and I read the squawk when it came in, and I'm like, this can't be true. Like, it was so blatantly unrealistic. I was like, this can't be true. And I walked up to dispatch. I grabbed the key. I walked out to the plane. Of course, people can tell I'm frustrated or a little anxious. So I've got 2 or 3 people in tow behind me wanting to see if it's going to start or not start. And 2 cranks, like literally put the key in, turned it, and it went, wah, wah, and it took off. And the plane's running, and like everyone's frustrated and mesmerized. And they said, "What'd you do?" I said, "I followed the checklist." And they're like, "Did you really?" I said, "That's all I did. I don't fly this plane very often. I follow the checklist." And I think that it's the one thing I can hear from my office every day. If there was a side note to that one, it's they start the plane and keep it at 2,000 RPMs and start doing other checklist items and just burn an extra few gallons of gas. But it's something I did when I was a student. I don't fault anybody, but those little intricate things are what makes great pilots great and makes students.
There you go. Some good stuff for the listeners. Wally, back to you for one. You have flown everything in your career from the Cessna Skyhawk, I believe you still own one of those, up to the Boeing 777, which you're a captain on. If you could only ever fly one airplane for the rest of your life, you had to pick one, that's all you could fly for the rest of your days here on Earth, what would you pick? What's been your favorite plane?
777, no doubt.
Really?
Yeah, and it's still new. I was looking at my record. I mean, I only had 210 hours in the airplane, so I'm very
only 210 hours. Wait a second. Every listener out there would freaking kill to have 210 hours total flight time.
Well, I was.
Everyone knows you just went to training like 3 months ago.
Yeah.
210 hours. Nick just said I only have 250 hours. He's been flying for years.
Yeah, but as I look through my, I can go in and see how much time I have in most of the airplanes I've flown at this airline, and I've got about 12,000 hours in a 737, about 4,200 hours in a 75, 76. So, relatively speaking, I'm still kind of new on the 777, but it's just a beautiful airplane. There's it's like they thought of everything. Every time I get in it, it's like, wow. I did a charter, actually 2 charters for an NFL team last week. Brought them over here to play the Texans, and then took them back home. And so, before. As we're waiting for the team, you're just sitting on the airplane, and time to open up the door and look down in the E&E compartment down below, and climb down there and peek around, and but it's just such a beautiful airplane.
It's a great airplane. I love the 777.
Yeah, it's just talking about the trip I just flew last week. Just a little funny story. We were bringing the Saints over here to play the Texans, and so we went over to New Orleans and pulled up to the FBO, and the team got there, and we were taxiing out, and some weather rolled in, and just about that time, the first officer called for taxi, and they said, taxi to runway 2 via whatever, and then they said, wait, stand by, hold your position, and then they came back and they gave us taxi instructions and basically shut everybody down. Nobody else was leaving, but we got to leave, and the guy on departure control says, man, you got our Saints on board. We got to take care of you. So
that's awesome. One
of the perks of the job. That was cool.
All right, well, we'll get to the future here in just a minute for where the show is headed. One more just in general about the podcast, Bobby. If listeners love the show, if they've loved the last 9,900 episodes of Behind the Prop, what is your number one ask of them?
I mean, to me, it's share the show, right? And I'm sure they're doing that, and I don't know what more they could do. But if I was in whatever small airport that you guys and girls are listening from today or going to go fly in, if there's 10 planes and a bathroom or a club car, I think Wally and I both would appreciate you putting a sticker in the car, putting the URL on something, telling your flight students about it, telling other CFIs to share with their students. The only way that it keeps going, and again, it's only an ego play at this point, is if you're sharing the show and we have a reason to make other aviators excited about the show. Again, 6 continents is huge. We're listened to in probably 100 countries a week now, and it definitely fuels my fire to keep making great content and building something that I can be proud of and that the school can be proud of and that Wally and I and our families can be proud of. So it would be share it with your friends. If I got really, really greedy, Nick, I would ask people to give a review on whatever platform they're listening to us on. People, I mean, when you go listen to something or you think about watching a movie on Netflix, the first thing you do is look at where it's trending and how many people are giving it reviews. And it's the same thing in this world, right? And if you have a bad review, give it to us if you think you have to. I'll live through the scrutiny, but the reviews really, really help on where we sit on different platforms across all the genres of where we put our show. So share it with your friends, and then hopefully if you think we're doing good work, then give us a good review.
The number one thing, I kid you not, if I ever hear anything negative, it's that I call you a licensed pilot and not a certificated pilot at the beginning. I say licensed pilot Bobby Dawes.
I probably hear that every week. Every week someone says, you don't have a license, right? Well, early on, I didn't know why people were telling me that. Of course I know I'm a certified pilot. Like, of course. And then it kind of clicked one day. Oh, because the podcast says it. Okay, I got it.
Because Nick said it. All right, so here we are, kind of nearing the end of episode 100 of Behind the Prop, guys. It's been a lot of fun. It's been quite a journey. What does the future hold, Bobby?
Yeah, so I think a few local people keep asking if we're doing something special for the 100th episode, and of course this interview is kind of our thought on doing something a little different than talking about a topic or some questions that listeners ask. But we also wanted to kind of reset and regroup and think about what we wanted to be doing. And Wally and I both have agreed we're all in for this for the long haul. And kind of over the last, I'll say 60 days, we said, you know what, we're going to be in Oshkosh next year. And that's the first thing. If you ever thought about us or you listen to the show and you want to meet us, there's a 99.9% chance that Wally and I are going to have a booth at Oshkosh next year to share the stories and lessons we've been sharing for the last couple of years from Behind the Prop with you in person and get to know you better live over that week-long expo. And hopefully we won't crash and burn during that week, meaning get exhausted from doing it all week. And Wally and I look forward to Oshkosh in 2023. Part of that is we're going to also refocus a little bit of our time and effort. So we love the show. Wally just did something that made my computer beep, so I think we clipped another 1,000 listeners, or he wouldn't have updated our little note that we share. But we're going to par back and go to an every other week schedule. Out of all the aviation podcasts out there, I think we're the only one that has a weekly show. And weekly, I mean every week at the exact same time. So I think we're going to go to every other week. If you're out there and you look forward to hearing us on Mondays, please don't be mad at us. But I think an every other week show is going to do two things for the listeners. One, it's going to create a little bit more predictability because we won't be stressed on getting that show out every Monday. And then two, I think the shows are going to get a lot better in content. Wally and I both have challenged ourselves to say, is this the best product that we can put out? Do we do the absolute best show we can? And the reality is, when we're chasing ourselves on a Sunday afternoon to try and get a show recorded so you, Nick, can edit it for us, it's not always the best stuff. And I think we've recognized that. I think I've heard a couple listeners say, hey, this one sounded a little bit like a filler show. And truth be known, it is. We've lost a little touch with our guests, and we've got a long list of guests that want to join the show, and it's just been being pulled in a million different directions. So we're going to go to every other week, and we're going to have great guests. We're going to have great content. We're going to teach as best as we can teach and make the show even better than it has been the last 100 shows for the next 100 shows. And then finally, we decided that we want to be part of the group of people out there that are making great pilots in a different way. And Wally and I have challenged ourselves and re-challenged ourselves to make sure we're in on this. We hope to have, by Q1 of next year, the first that I've seen, really an audible ground school. And it's going to be something that Behind the Prop puts out. It's going to be lightning years ahead of other things that are out there from a value perspective and a cost perspective. We hope to be the best solution at the most valuable price on the market. And it'd be something that can take you through zero to knowledge exam when the time is right at the end of your training, people, not before you start flight training. But that you could take on a train, in a plane, on a car, and really sit with the content and learn the content in a way that I don't think people are doing today, and that I think that we're pretty good at doing. And we're going to make a ground school that is something to be super proud of, and something that you're going to be able to buy for almost next to nothing in the grand scheme of things. And we can't wait to put that ground school out. We're going to start with private, of course, and if private is somewhat successful or anywhat successful, then I think we'll move on to the other ratings. And you're going to continue to get the great shows that we create weekly from your questions and the things that you present to us. But we're also going to put out a ground school in Q1 of 2023, and we will see you at Oshkosh.
Sounds great. Anything else you guys have to say for before we wrap up episode number 100?
No, it's been a blast. It has been an absolute blast. I mean, I'm looking at the statistics. Bobby and I are both a little bit statistic geeks, and it took us 52 days for 1,000 downloads. Now we get 1,000 downloads about every 2 to 4 days.
Yeah, it's a lot of listeners, and we can't say thanks enough to the listeners, because we really do say thanks to you. The most thing he didn't talk about that I did want to talk about was just how much it means to me when someone from far away swings by the flight school. The farthest person that's came to see me from all over the world has been New York City so far. So if you happen to travel to Houston, Texas, and you're a fan of the show, if you poke your head in, I have a feeling you're going to get some pretty cool swag from Behind the Prop. It means a lot. We hope that the numbers keep doubling and tripling as we keep doing this. I think we're both a little worried that every other week's going to slow down the numbers, but I think it's just going to keep growing and growing. So keep listening, keep sharing, and keep giving us 5-star reviews, and the show will be successful for a long, long time.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys letting me come on today and even just be a tiny little small part of the last 100 episodes. It's been a lot of fun.
We appreciate you, Nick, and thanks for all the hard work you do on editing the show. And with that, as I always say, fly safely and stay behind the prop.
Thanks for checking out the Behind the Prop podcast. Be sure to click subscribe and check us out online at BehindTheProp.com. Behind the Prop is recorded in Houston, Texas. Creator and host is Bobby Doss. Co-host is Wally Mulhern. The show is for entertainment purposes only and is not meant to replace actual flight instruction. Thanks for listening, and remember, fly safe.